right. Welcome back, folks. This is Dr. Scott and
Dr. Shiloh. Happy 2019.
This is our mid-season premiere. That's it?
Premiere.
Our mid-season premiere. I never thought that I would be in a place where I got to say that I am doing a mid-season premiere. I thought those days were long gone.
Nope. Here we are, even though hopefully we get this one out in January.
No, we're going to.
Okay.
It's going to happen. And I just want to give us a high five, a virtual high five, so we don't throw all of our recording.
Just kidding. Sorry.
stuff
I
off.
couldn't help myself.
That we put out as many episodes in our first half of our second season as we did in our whole first season.
Yes.
Great. So
Good job.
We're committing to each other. We're going to hold each other accountable.
Okay. Accountability partners.
Yeah, exactly.
Yay.
For being productive, which is really exciting. So what did you do on your Christmas break?
I went to Belgium for 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
For Christmas and for New Year's. And it's so funny. Every time I tell someone, they're like, oh, do you have family there? And it was literally just a bucket list thing we've wanted to do. Probably since I saw the movie in Bruges. I'm like, that is adorable in winter.
Wait,
Stop.
but let's just hold on. Full stop. The movie in Bruges is about hitmen who
right.
kill each other brutally, and there's just one scene of violence after another in the middle of this gorgeous, quaint town, right?
It's
medieval.
A perfectly preserved medieval town, and it was everything I wanted it to be from, seeing it in the movie, and then, of course, researching for over a year, and Christmas time there was just awesome. We had a adorable Airbnb, Christmas markets, hot cider, hot wine, skating, horse-drawn carriages. Come on.
Yeah,
awesome.
every picture that you posted and sent back to me looks like it was photoshopped.
Yeah, it
was beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was cold, but hey, 2 weeks I put up with it.
That's cool.
Yeah. What about you?
I didn't really intend to do it, but I guess I'm going to give myself I'm going to try and reframe it positively that I gained back half of everything I lost on the keto diet over the summer because I ate so much.
Only half?
Only half. No, it was low key. It was really wonderful, wonderful low key Christmas this year, which was great.
Good.
So yeah, that was good.
Good.
But we're glad to be back. Work is great, and
yeah, it's nice to get back into the routine.
But I'll tell you what did happen. That is totally your fault and is wonderful. Is that we got hooked up with another podcast that is mind blowing, and because I have this sort of, I'm not going to say OCD because I don't want to diminish people who actually have OCD, but when I want to start something from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And you sent me a link to these great guys and people. If you don't know them, you're going to be hearing about them a lot on this podcast. They have a podcast called Getting Off, and it is two defense attorneys that work together and have been adversaries in court before.
Right.
And they're in
Wisconsin.
No, they're in Madison, Wisconsin. Right.
Right.
They are so freaking smart. It's mind blowing.
Yeah, we first mentioned them in our Incel
Did we?
episode
Okay.
because they had done a little bit of research, and I suggested that you listen to theirs. But that was kind of our first. That's how I discovered them. And I think I said they're kind of the attorney version of us.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, I'm going through this whole evolution with them. So I couldn't start at episode 147 because they're so freaking prolific. It's amazing.
I can't believe they put out so many.
I know, but I started from the beginning, and I had this whole, and I tend to do this because this is the way my weird brain works, is I would these are the smartest people I've ever listened to. I know nothing. I thought I knew about the court system because I'm in it a lot. But to hear the intricacies and the way they perceive things, and then they have to switch gears, and they have to switch this perspective and that perspective, I was thinking, I'll never get this, but it's fascinating. Then you listen to 4 or 5 episodes, and it's like, oh, I get it. And then another couple episodes, I could be an attorney. I mean, I get this. I could totally be an attorney.
It's not so hard.
It's not so hard. And then the next episode, I'm a complete dumbass. I did not see that coming. These people are geniuses. I would never be able to do that.
Nick just says something brilliant and
unbelievable.
Jess is just as quick as a whip. I mean, it's just awesome.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I mean, they're the kind of people that if you needed defense attorneys, these would be the people that are, because they're so passionate about the work. But I got to tell you, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of them as prosecutors either.
Nope. No. But it's really interesting because the title of their podcast, the Getting Off podcast, they obviously, you know, getting people off from their crimes, but they've also specialized in sexual offenders, just like we have, just in obviously a different arena. But I think that was neat to kind of find out about them. But they'll be at the True Crime Podcast Festival in Chicago also.
Yeah, we're going to hang out with them. We're going to hang out with them.
We are.
So that was really cool. I learned more about the Aaron Hernandez case than I had any clue. I mean, they had access to a lot of information that I was not familiar with at all.
Oh, good.
Which was fascinating. So that was great, and I'm going to continue with them. But I'm telling you, there's so many good podcasts out there. It's difficult. And then we went down the rabbit hole on this week's topic, which is long-haul trucker serial killers.
Yeah. Yeah, a topic we've been wanting to do for a really long time. And literally up until a couple hours ago, I found another book in my office that I'm like, oh, this gold mine right here.
And you were sending me texts today with more video clips of like, oh, wait, this kind of changes our perspective on what we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up for me about this particular subject is I remember when the Dexter series came out, and my friend Bob was one of the producers of the show on, was it Showtime? Mm-hmm. And I think he developed it as well. But we were laughing about it because, you know, that series is based on a couple of books, and the character is set in Miami, and okay, it's like, well, this is a serial killer who kills serial killers. Right. But then suddenly it's like, okay, how many damn serial killers are there in Miami? Is it just not safe for anybody to go out of their house because there's so many killers? And that's what, like, once I kind of shifted in perspective, like, it became a little less interesting to me, even though...
Don't think about it too hard. It's just entertainment.
I know. But I'll tell you, what snapped it back into focus was this subject. Because when you sent me the graphic of the FBI map of how many serial killer murders had occurred across the U.S., it's like a blood splatter.
And that map is old. I mean, I can't even imagine what it is. And you know what? I posted that on Instagram, and as soon as I did, someone was like, where can I get this map? Where's this information? But I was very excited for this because I feel like this kind of brings me back to one of the topics that really got me truly interested in true crime. Of course, it hones back to serial killers, which, you know, obviously many people are interested in, and brings us back to the huge interest in true crime and the success of so many podcasts and TV shows and everything. So I feel like it brings it kind of back to my roots because early, before I was even a police officer, I think I may have talked about this before, but I snuck into a training with FBI profiler Roy Hazelwood. I was a police cadet, so I did technically work for a police department, but the training was
You didn't just stumble in from a nightclub or something?
No.
What's going on here? Oh, my God.
I probably did sound like that back then. Well, I mean, I didn't sleep a whole lot. Then I would party and then go to work. But no, I was working for a police department as their evidence and property technician, and I sat with the detectives. And so the two sex crimes detectives sat in front of me, and they were talking about this training. And I'm like, I want to go to this training.
Oh, that's
and
great.
I was able to submit my stuff. They didn't ask if they just asked, what department do you work for? Put it down. So I wasn't a sworn officer or anything, and got into this training. And as I actually put a couple photos up on Instagram today of the book, which is the one that I found in my office today. But Roy Hazelwood was just amazing, so charismatic, such a lovely man in person, and just a wonderful instructor, and bringing these stories to life. And the book is called The Evil That Men Do. And there's some well-known stories in there, and there's some not so well-known stories in there. But I remember him particularly talking about, probably at the time, one of the most well-known serial killing truckers, long-haul truckers. And the pictures and the stories were just horrific, and that really stuck in my mind. So, we kind of have that like 1999, and then I don't know if you remember at internship when we had to, each of the interns, we had to do a presentation on some forensic topic. Do you remember that?
I don't. Was that the beginning or was it halfway?
No,
it was
that was
halfway through, right?
No, I think we had to do that one at the beginning, and then we had to do one specifically on the type of population we were working on later. But
I don't even remember what I did.
I don't remember what you did either. I know Sarah did that one on like the disorder where people think bugs are like, what was that?
It was Morgellons.
Yes.
But here's the thing.
Oh.
And Sarah, look, we had a colleague. We have a colleague. I ended up working with her in state prison. Brilliant woman. Just smart as a whip. Great psychologist. And she got excoriated by the Morgellons community because it was this idea that your body is there are parasites or something that are coming out of your skin, and there's like these lupus-like symptoms and Lyme disease-like symptoms, and unfortunately the online community had all come together and they were like scrubbing themselves with steel wool. I mean, there was a real pathology to it, and Sarah came from this perspective of like, no, there's no underlying science for it, and she's a researcher. I mean, she did really good work. But isn't it interesting? It's now, 11, 12 years later? They freaking found the underlying biological basis for Morgellons.
Isn't that crazy?
So some people actually have it. I think
Yeah.
Joni Mitchell.
Yes,
Joni
yes.
Mitchell literally has.
Yeah, that was a couple years ago.
Yeah, but you think about all these people that were going to their doctors, and the doctor's like, yeah, you need to take some antipsychotics. That's all that's wrong with you.
There's so many medical disorders
God,
like
what
that.
did I do?
What did you do? I don't remember. I remember, so there were 4 of us. I remember you guys all did like these really, psychological, sounds funny, presentations. And here I was, like this cop taking a leave of absence to finish grad school. And I said, in 2007, the FBI did a symposium on serial killers. I'm going to do an overview of that report. It was like not even psychological.
But it was related to what we...
It was forensic.
Yeah,
it was super
absolutely.
interesting. So, and you can look up this report if you just Google FBI Serial Killer Symposium 2007. They published a report on it. But basically they had experts from the fields of criminology, homicide investigators, BAU agents, all from all over the world, mostly United States, but they all came together to discuss various myths about serial killers. They actually wanted to come up with a definition because there had been so many different definitions thrown around, plus, mass killer, spree killer, all of that. And basically they just had these kind of breakout groups to kind of talk about all this. And one area they discussed was the highway serial killers. And by the way, the definition they came up with of serial murder is the unlawful killing of 2 or more victims by the same offender in separate events. So it was very simple.
And
Go ahead.
I'm not the one who named this, but and I'm not being facetious. I'm not trying to be funny, but isn't it a little weird that like you kill 2 people and you're a serial killer?
Well,
I mean, I don't know
it has
what the
to be
actual
separate events, so it can't be you like murder 2 family members at the same time.
But then they're saying that it's related to the motivation, right? So it's not.
They don't even go that deep.
Yeah, see, that just seems
So-
weird. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not important, but it just seems.
Yeah, I think it was more to probably for statistical purposes to be able to calculate all that nationwide in an attempt to sort of share data.
Oh, okay.
And then you can sort of break it down later. Like VICAP, you can put tons of different
And VICAP stands for.
the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program.
Wow.
So I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, so they had this symposium, and that's what I did my presentation on in 2008 or 9, whenever that was. But in 2000, I'm going to do a little bit of history to this. So there is this project called the Highway Serial Killings Initiative, so HSK initiative, and that is through the FBI. But essentially in 2003, 2004-ish, crime analysts from around the country. It's when, hiring crime analysts to sort of predict where crime was going to happen really became its own thing. But they started noticing that bodies were being dumped along major interstates. And particularly in Oklahoma, there's two interstates that come together there. I think it's the I-35 and the I-40. So they're like the two biggest interstates of the country, kind of intersect. So truckers from all over are coming through there all the time. But essentially, a significant amount of bodies are being found along the roadside, and large number of these victims are being identified as sex workers, transient women that are frequenting truck stops, kind of using that as a home base, either to shower or eat or use a restroom or whatever. But all of their main suspects end up starting to be truckers.
So they're looking at it sounds like what they're able to identify is that the victims, the vast majority are women, obviously, and probably 99.9% women,
right,
are living what we would consider high-risk lifestyles.
Sure. And I know a lot of people take offense to that terminology. High risk kind of feels victim blaming, but I don't look at it.
That's not the way I mean it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because that's not what we're trying to, and by the way, one of the videos that we watched in preparation for this clearly indicates, as many people are starting to find out now, that women that are working in this trade, and I haven't, I'm not saying any judgment about the sex trade in itself, unless it is sex trafficking, which is different. These people, these women are victimized, and it's not just that some of them might be minors. There are adults that are sex trafficked as well, that have been forced into this. They might be immigrants. They might be people who are, have been literally brainwashed, because they've been in it so long.
But when we use the term risk, we're talking purely numbers, because you have a number of factors about you. It puts you at higher risk. It's not whose fault is it, or how did you end up with those factors?
Or that you're choosing, there's a difference between choosing, feeling that you have a choice versus I have to do this because I don't know what other choices I have, or I don't have any other choices.
Sure.
Anyway, that was my rant.
No, that's okay. But so they're looking at this and they're saying, well, how ideal, right? These suspects that are truckers have a vast pool of victims. Women are getting in their trucks. They have plenty of opportunity to then release these women alive or dead anywhere.
Who was the one? Who was the one in studying for this that was the first trucker that actually just kind of sat back, leaned back on a couch and started giving them all the information? It's all there. By the way, this goes along with News of the Weird, which is a website that's been around forever, has a regular thing about how many killers have triple names and go by their triple names. And it's always like Barry, Dwayne, somebody.
Right.
So all of these people.
Well, it's because they have such common names. So
that's true.
When the police or the press put it out, they put their middle names so that to differentiate them.
Oh, okay. But this guy,
I don't think they really go by Bobby Lee, whatever.
No offense to any Bobby Lees out
Bobby
there.
Lee.
In fact, I hope we have some Bobby Lees. But one of the things that this first gentleman said, who was giving the information to the investigators, was, "I don't have to hunt. They come to me.
Yeah.
I'm parked in the lot, and they're knocking on my door because that's their trade."
Sure. No, it's super creepy. There's a lot. There's a few that have been very transparent with how this all goes down. So in 2000, I show 2009. Why do I have that written as 2009? It's got to be earlier. But the FBI ends up starting the Highway Serial Killings Initiative. One, to raise awareness that this is happening. And two, so their services by their profilers can be used by local agencies in another way. Sometimes local agencies don't know, hey, should I call a profiler and run this case by them? So this was helping sort of say, hey, we also offer this service, cross-jurisdictional. It might be helpful. So that's how they came up with this this initiative. It does fall under the VICAP unit of the FBI, which does a lot of their analysis. So VICAP, just to run that down real quickly, it's a database. It's a database that is generally for homicides, kidnappings, and missing persons, where any local agency can get into the system, put in information about their crime, and it will link similarities across the country. It's fantastic. It's not required. So there's so much data missing.
That's mind-blowing to me.
It's mind-blowing, yeah.
It's one of the big problems in law enforcement and even mental health care is,
sure.
It's one of the things that happened with the last presidential administration was, which was really great, which was the institution of requiring electronic health records across all
Right.
medical. And now if we could get the same thing going for mental health, and obviously we want to protect privacy, but being able to access that information and in law enforcement, one of the big complaints is that in a big city like Los Angeles, we have so many different police departments, and none of the systems talk to each other.
Right.
So it's this archaic, like two cops on phones trying to have a conversation, figuring out the spelling of the name. Well, is this the same John Doe? Are we talking about the same guy?
Right. And they call that linkage blindness.
Oh, I didn't know there was a term.
Yeah, there's a term for it.
Wow.
But as of 2016, the Highway Serial Killings Initiative has identified more than 750 people whose bodies were found and has identified 450 potential suspects.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, out of those 450 potential suspects, have there been charges brought against them?
Some.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like we have what I think the stat is that there's 25 identified that are incarcerated right now.
I don't know. I didn't see that stat.
That's what I saw, but
I
it was
didn't- I
old,
didn't
so
pull that
there
up.
may be more now.
Okay. So that's what we're talking about here. I want to talk a little bit about what you were just saying with some people that have come forward and talked about how common, I don't know if common's the term, but how this all actually happens in real life. And, unless you catch someone and they're very forthcoming with the cops, which is not often, but we are dealing with, some fairly narcissistic people that want to brag about their crimes too. So we have a few of those that have talked. Did you watch The Killing Season, the documentary on A&E docuseries? It was actually about the Long Island serial killings.
No, that's
Okay.
in the queue. Oh my gosh, my queue is so long.
Oh my God. Okay, so this came out in 2016. It was excellent. There's also a fantastic book called Lost Girls by Robert Kolker that is actually being turned into a Netflix movie.
Wow.
So you bet we will have an episode on that. But I read the book. I loved the book because it was all about the victims, talking about these women and what their lives were like and about their families in the aftermath. And it's just, it was great. But in episode 6 of The Killing Season, the documentarians start looking at the phenomenon of serial killer truckers basically as a possible kind of suspect pool to the Long Island serial killings. They talk to women who, are sex workers at these truck stops. They call them lot lizards, right? They even speak with a convicted highway serial killer who really gives some terrifying insight into this. They talk to him from prison. Again, I take this with a grain of salt because you give someone like this a microphone and a platform and...
Well, that becomes very clear as we start to talk about Jesperson later on in this episode, is that the level of narcissism that's in this particular kind of serial killer. I mean, of all the ones I looked and reviewed at for this, there was only one that turned himself in. He even took a body part into the police station with him because he wanted to tell on himself. He wanted to say, I've been doing this. He
had some sort of remorse.
He had some remorse,
Yeah.
and that is incredibly rare.
Yes.
The only remorse that exists in these other guys, and and the narcissistic focus on taking credit for the ones that they did engage in is
it's
mind-boggling.
Yeah. So that's why I kind of take this with a grain of salt. This guy's name is John Robert Williams.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Is he the one you were talking about?
Yeah, he was.
So he was a long-haul trucker. He was 28 years old when he was captured, and he claims to have killed more than 30 women along Interstate 40. So they start talking to him from prison, and just very blatantly, he says, that's what we all talk about out there. We know it's all happening. I think most alarming was that he says, I know of more serial killers. There was actually 7 of us working together.
Well,
and 2 of them were female. 5 male, 2 female. So he said they essentially traded women amongst themselves. They even had a name for themselves. They use an Apache term, Netahe. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I tried to Google it. I could not find it. But it means killers.
Okay. Did anybody ever, other than him, corroborate that?
I have no idea. It was just in the docuseries, and they didn't take it much further.
Okay, I have to figure that out.
So, can you figure it out?
I'm going to figure it out.
And let us know?
I'm going to let you know.
You're just going to crack the case? Just like that, huh?
With my paid subscription to Spokio, looking people up.
Yes. But so that was pretty chilling to hear. I think like you said, when they're bragging about them, just hey, I don't have to hunt. They're knocking on my door. It's not necessarily grabbing people off the street and throwing them in their truck. They're coming to them, and they're willingly, whether they're, back in the day, it was more of like a hitchhiking scenario, like what we're going to talk about with the next guy, or they are sex workers. It really is kind of the perfect crime, though. I mean, you have these truckers that have a mobile home where they don't need an alibi because their job is to be alone and be mobile. And they have a pretty soundproof compartment to just pick people up in and drop them off wherever they want.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
I think the thing, it looks like it's, especially from some of the video clips and the segments that I was looking at in preparation for this, the thing that has changed the landscape is the increase in availability of DNA evidence.
Sure.
Because it seems like for the longest time, especially with, has it been Rhodes?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Rhodes?
Robert Ben Rhodes.
Robert Ben Rhodes, is that there was no identifying.
Right.
And then when they were able to get DNA evidence and start matching it, that seems to have changed the whole landscape.
Oh, which I think is just the way that it's going to be with serial killers in general.
Well, everybody's signing up for 23andMe.
Heck yeah.
And that's how they caught a murder recently, was through 23andMe.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah, you just want to live in 1984 where we're all being monitored and chipped. And
I don't care.
It's kind of it's probably through your Apple Watch there anyway.
Maybe. So let's talk about Robert Ben Rhodes.
Yeah.
So this is the case that Roy Hazelwood actually highlighted when I did the training. And like I said, it was just he showed a lot of images in his trainings, which for a young person interested in true crime, I was shocked yet fascinated by all of that. But yeah, it really stuck with me, some of the visuals especially. So a little bit about Rhodes. So he was born in 1945 in Iowa. He was first just raised by his mother because his father was in the Army. But eventually his father came home from abroad, was a very strict authoritarian, and kind of an unremarkable childhood. I mean, he was involved in sports in school, not a ton of behavioral problems, just kind of unremarkable. Then at 18, he joins the Marines. And then his father is accused of molesting, I believe, cousins. I think Roy Hazelwood's book says that it's cousins, a boy and a girl. And then his father commits suicide after he's accused. So Rhodes then starts to have a lot of problems in the military, obviously a bit affected by his father's death, and is dishonorably discharged. I think he committed theft or something. and gets kicked out. So, and later Rhodes tells a couple people that his father also abused him, whether sexually or physically, he doesn't specify, and he never really goes into it with anyone. So he kind of alluded to it with his first wife and to cops, but...
So once again, it seems like we're kind of circling back around to not really being able to tell about the veracity of these self-reports because it's all coming from people that are so narcissistically inclined.
Yeah, but we know his father was accused at least of, it's actually performing lascivious acts on a 12-year-old girl is what I had as an actual offense. But anyway, Rhodes goes on to attend a little bit of college. He drops out. He applies for a job as a police officer.
Oh, yeah. That seems to be pretty common.
But not hired, thank goodness.
So the psych screen worked that time.
Right. Yes,
That's good.
it did. So he's married in 1968. He has a son. He gets divorced by 1972. And he ends up marrying a couple more times. And I'm going to talk about the most significant marriage at the end of this because I think it's really interesting. But he works in stores and supermarkets, restaurants, and then finally lands a job as a long-haul truck driver. A lot of people account that he blew money on prostitutes, sex workers, and developed an extreme interest in S&M at some point. So again, there's not really an origin story of that, even though we're going to talk about how he treated his wife before some of the more... Actually, I'm just going to talk about that now because then I'm going to get into the murders. So I'm going to open up my book by Roy Hazelwood here because I couldn't find anything on the wives at all. And then I remembered I had this book and I thought, you know what? I know there's something in there. And as part of Roy Hazelwood's research with the FBI profiling unit, he actually went out and interviewed and did a survey of 20 female subjects, which he calls compliant victims, or they were the partners or spouses of these offenders.
I hate that. I really, really hate that term.
Yeah.
I'm having a visceral reaction to
Why?
it. But compliant victims. It goes back to that high risk lifestyle thing.
Yeah.
Like compliance means implies you're agreeing to it. I mean,
Right. And yeah.
Anyway,
and he does a really good job of talking about sort of the psychological makeup of these women and what he kind of expected when he went to meet them, and that they were naive but intelligent, pretty. They weren't these meek little, dormouse, passive women that could be told what to do. Like he kind of thought in his mind. He even talks about like his misconceptions about that. But that, yes, there is a specific psychological makeup that if they had not been partnered up with this person, would they have been out killing people? No. No.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to compartmentalization, in any relationship, I think. I mean, it's not, I think I know this. I mean, we know this about family systems and clinical work, that there are things that you choose to ignore.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Certainly, if you're in a relationship as a compliant victim, I hate that word. But if you're in that position and you're working with a master narcissist who's able to also lead a double life, which they're very good at, and they're compartmentalizing and marginalizing and partitioning off so many factors, then they're giving a blank slate. The person on the other end doesn't have anything. Oh well, I guess he just keeps to himself.
Right. Right. And I think specifically these were women who were involved with sexual sadists. So that's its own special, category of even psychopathy or serial killer or whatever. That's its own special thing. But Rhodes was last married to a woman by the name of Deborah. And Deborah had been divorced. She had some kids from her previous marriage, but she kind of talks about meeting him at a bar in Houston one night, and he's dressed as an airline pilot, like in a uniform at this bar. And she wasn't looking to hook up with him. She danced with him, and then sees him again another night, and he's dressed as a cowboy. And she's talking about...
So he's one of the village people.
He's two of the village people. So, she just kind of... This was a nice guy to dance with, kind of had a connection with him. They were really just what she termed friends at the beginning. And at one point, he finally admits, "Oh, I'm not a pilot," and she just kind of brushes it off. I mean, okay, red flag number one. Why are you wearing a pilot's uniform to a bar? But he starts sending her flowers. He calls her one night from the road and just professes his love to her when they haven't even talked about love, and she was kind of reeled in by it. So they move in together. She said
Do we know what year this is?
83.
Okay.
She felt like he really made her feel like she was the only thing that mattered to him, like she was a queen. So as their relationship progresses, they move in together, they start going out. She calls herself his paper doll. He would tell her exactly what to wear. He would tell her how to do her makeup and her hair. And she's like, okay. He's kind of spoiling me and buying me this, and sure, I'll do it. But this is also in hindsight when she says he really liked to be in control.
And grooming, it seems like.
Oh,
so
gosh.
This is like he's beginning the grooming
Classic.
process to move her towards a sexual sadism.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Yep. So then, kind of the next step is they're on a date one night, and they're at some dance hall, and he slaps a handcuff on her wrist. And she flips out. It's like, "I don't appreciate that. Take it off." And he just kind of brushes it off. And yeah, I mean, definitely like this testing, right?
He keeps
In
testing the
grooming
boundaries,
process. So then the next test is, "Hey, let's go to a swingers club." And she's so naive. She thinks country western dancing swingers, and gets there and some lady sticks her hand up her skirt. And she's like, "I'm not comfortable with this. Let's go." And then he gets her to dress up for Halloween.
Was it while they were swing dancing?
Yes, Scott. That's exactly what it was. He gets her to go to a Halloween party dressed as slave and master, but he's actually the slave. And this is a very classic photo of him in his getup. I'll throw it up
With
on,
a big grin.
Instagram, with a big old grin, and his big '80s serial killer eyeglasses. They ended up winning first place costume contest, by the way. And then one day, this guy shows up on her door and he says, "I'm the love slave that Bob ordered for you." So weird, right? Like, just maybe this will make my wife into what I'm into. Just orders up a guy for her. She pushes him off her porch and says, "Get out of here. I don't want any part of this." And she's starting to this time find a lot of books and magazines, really violent pornography. He's completely racking up the phone charges for sex lines.
Yeah.
And then she sees this really strange connection between sex and pain. So she ends up developing some really terrible, terrible headaches that make her really sick. So she would have to lay down in bed. And she said he would just lay down next to her and would get aroused by watching her suffer.
Wow.
And then she ends up diagnosed with lupus, and she's hospitalized. And he climbs on top of her in the bed in the hospital and tries to have sex with her.
Wow.
As she's like incapacitated and suffering. Yeah.
Okay, I haven't read any of this in the material.
I'm
was
telling you,
looking
I
at.
could not find anything on the internet. This is all in Hazelwood's book.
Wow.
After he interviewed her. So he then goes on the road for like 3 months or something. He's gone for a bigger span of time. And she starts realizing, I'm doing okay by myself. Like, I don't need him as much as I thought I did. So she starts, when she talks to him, she starts being very self-assured, a lot less meek on the phone with him. And as soon as she sort of changes that, he sends what Roy says, an avalanche of love letters. And it's just like he felt like he was losing control a bit. And he's trying to reel her back in. They weren't married at this time. The second he gets home, he says, "I want to marry you." And in 2 days, they get married.
Wow.
So she says, everything was absolutely about control. He could drink all night long and would never get drunk. He had some sort of minor surgery, wouldn't take pain meds, did not like to be out of control. So she's saying, I don't know if he poured his drinks out or made it seem like he was drinking all night. But finally, this all came to an end in October 1989, which is just a date to sort of note as we talk about the rest of his offending, where he one night demands anal sex, and she tells him no, and then he ends up beating her and raping her. And when he's finished, she looks at him, she says, "Are you through?" And he said, "Yeah," and just wanders into the living room. So she said she kept a baseball bat under her bed, for when he was gone, got her baseball bat, went in there, whacked him in the leg, and says, "Now I'm through." And she packs up her bags and leaves. And she says as she leaves, she can hear him just destroying things in the house.
So I get hung up on details. Did she hit him in the leg to incapacitate him so that she could leave without him?
I don't think so.
Stopping her?
It didn't sound like that. It was more of like just acting out. Let's see. Oh, she hit him in the arm. Yeah. She went in, walked out, hit him in the arm, and then says, "I'm through." And that was it. So.
Well, this is very interesting that you share this, because I know in several episodes I've talked about sort of my one of my idols, Kevin Cameron, the social worker who is a absolute expert in threat assessment in Canada, and his model, his Vitra model. And one of the things that we learn from this is that, once again, and you'll hear me say this over and over again because it's Kevin, and I'm paraphrasing Kevin, is that no one ever snaps. The pathway to violence is an evolutionary process. And in so many school shootings, the data we look at, the school shootings, the young men have a brief, a veneer of stability when they are in a relationship. And when that relationship inevitably ends, because it is not a stable relationship and usually the other person cannot tolerate it, when that happens, that's when then they are inflamed into whatever violent actions they're going to take. And it sounds like, regardless of what happened, good for her for taking care of herself and preserving her life. But this is what the trigger was, right?
Absolutely. It was
to push him to the next level.
Yes. So that happens in October 1989. So I'm going to jump into now what I'm going to call the known killings of Rhodes, because there is obviously speculation that this didn't just start out of the blue, even though there seems to be a trigger when we're looking at dates. This is not likely the first time that he decided to go out and do this. So we're going to go to February of 1990. And in Houston, Texas, which is where Rhodes had lived, he had an apartment that he kept there. 18-year-old Nicole Tuttle is standing in the middle of the street trying to flag down motorists. She is bruised and beat, and she has a dog collar around her neck. She has her hair shaved really short and is just brutalized. And a passerby finally picks her up, takes her to police, where she says that she was picked up in California a week earlier when she hitched a ride from a trucker, and that he had chained her inside of his cab for 6 days. When she fell asleep, he handcuffed her to this chain that he had rigged to the ceiling of the back of his truck, whipped her, pierced her genitals, raped her, took her back to his Houston apartment where he let her shower, but raped her again while she was chained up, cut off her hair, and then he puts her back in the truck. And when he stops to go pick up a load of product that he was hauling, he forgot to chain her up again, and that's when she escapes. So the cops actually end up stopping a trucker when she's found, have her do a field show up to see if it's the same guy, so they put her in the police car, take her to where they have him stopped.
Jeez.
And she says, "No, that's not him. I just want to go home. So she ends up, obviously giving a description. They don't know who this person is. The same day that she escapes, Rhodes, we know, picks up 14-year-old Regina Walters and her teenage boyfriend near Pasadena, Texas.
This is bad.
So he picks them up. They're essentially, hitchhiking. She's gone for a period of time. Her parents report her missing. And then on March 17th, her dad gets a call from a man on his unlisted phone number. So the parents are divorced. But the man basically tells him Regina's in a barn with her hair cut off.
And hangs up.
Yeah. Well, the dad asks, is she dead or alive? And then he hangs up.
Wait, I was watching does your record say that he says her hair is cut off? Because in the video clip it was creepier. It was Regina's in a barn and I've changed the way she looks.
Originally, back in '99, I heard it. Regina's in a barn with her hair cut off.
Okay.
I've heard different.
Because when I heard that, it was before they go into the extent of the injuries, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, did he dismember her or disfigure her or something?
Right.
And, maybe it was just the hair thing. It's still a horrible crime, no matter what.
Yeah. And then her mom's then contacted by a guy that says he wants to meet her at a local convenience store, and so she immediately tells the police, and they say, go ahead and we'll set up a sting operation. Well, she waits there for hours, and no one ever shows up. And he calls again and says he wants to meet her again. And the cops are just like, he's just toying with you guys. So, of course, this is 1990. It takes a while to trace phone calls and figure out what payphones he's using. So it never really leads to anything. So let's kind of fast forward to April of 1990, because this is when he gets caught. There's some in between that we'll go back. But in Arizona, a state trooper, God bless this guy, Mike Miller, he's so sweet on some of his interviews, but he spots a big rig parked on the highway that's not quite parked right. So he goes up to the big rig, to the, what do you call that part up front?
The cab.
The cab. Thank you. He goes up there, expecting to find the driver sleeping or something, and sees Rhodes in the back with this woman chained up, sobbing. So he stumbles upon this. Rhodes sees him. The girl starts screaming. Rhodes basically jumps out immediately, kind of prones out on his truck, in a pat-down position, and says, oh, here, I have a gun in my back pocket. And is very compliant.
And it's all consensual, right? Doesn't he try and frame it as we're just having sex play? It's all fine. He immediately does that access to shift into taking control of the situation.
Yeah.
By the way, same thing that Jeffrey Dahmer did when Dahmer's victim escaped and was running down the street, and the police believed it. Thank God it didn't happen this way this time.
I know. So this cop says, handcuffs him, goes and puts him in his patrol car, goes back to the woman in the truck and tells her, ma'am, there's a serious crime going on here. You have to hang tight. You're safe, but I'm calling for backup. He's out there by himself. And she's screaming her head off. I picture Silence of the Lambs, don't you leave me, you bitch, type thing. And so he goes back to the patrol car just in time, because Rhodes had slipped his cuffs and was about to open the door and get out. And he cuffs him back up again. And, he ends up getting booked for aggravated assault, sexual assault, unlawful imprisonment. So
it's interesting, too, just the confluence of events that allowed he would have gone on killing. She would have died if that cop had not pulled over and taken the chance to investigate it. Because what was the previous victim that survived that you were talking about?
Tuttle, Nicole Tuttle.
Okay, Tuttle. The other thing that was left out of what you just said that I found was that the cops didn't really handle her well. What they did not, she told them, I'm afraid of him. He knows too much about me. And we find out later he kept these women for 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
He would get all of their family information. There was even a couple of times the couple where he killed the boyfriend, he studied her journal.
Sure.
He studied everything in her journal, wrote little side notes
Right.
about, so this is a guy, like, obviously I think we've come a long way. I think law enforcement and investigation has come a long way. But if they had really tried to make that victim feel safe,
Sure.
then maybe they could have stopped it even before.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of a ghost in the wind too.
Yeah.
It's hard to identify these people. So he gets arrested in Arizona. Deborah, the wife that I talked about, gets a phone call from him, and he's like, "Go to my apartment in Houston and throw everything away." Thank God the cops had called the cops in Houston. The Arizona cops had called the cops in Houston, and they got there first. So they find, torture tools, cameras, stacks of photographs of all these unidentified women, bloody towels.
They found bloody towels in his bathtub, which they never go back into it in the documentary I watched. But did they? I was like, did they take DNA samples? Could that
Are
have
those
been
sitting in a evidence
bin
room somewhere?
somewhere?
Some
But
basement?
and they also showed a review of the porn he collected, which was really the porn books, not the pornography with photos. The porn literature that he had was really what we would like old school stuff that you had to buy through,
Like mail order
or
out of the country stuff.
right. So it's really brutal,
Yeah.
really nasty stuff.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, especially with the work that we did with working with child pornography offenders of how much effort it took back then to get some of that stuff. Whereas now you just, a couple clicks on the keyboard.
Yeah.
But the time and the effort and the money.
Well, because the only method of transmission was mail, and the consequences of getting caught for sending or receiving that through the mail was
the US
so
mail, yeah.
enormous. And there's a spectrum of pornography, and this is certainly on the far, far end of the spectrum
Deviant,
that is really deviant and pathological. But now no one does mail order anymore. It's like they can get
Everything
horrific
for free.
stuff, yeah. And hopefully they're being tracked the minute they hit those sites.
I'm sure they are. They even found in his apartment, like kind of a rack to tie women up on. They found a big, they said it was a stick, but it was a contraption that you would use to draw and quarter someone, essentially. So all these torture devices.
And he had a garrote. He had like a sort of a classic choking device that is known to be one of the most painful ways to kill somebody.
So Kathleen Vine was the one that was rescued by this Arizona state trooper. She said she'd been hitchhiking when Rhodes picked her up. She dozed off in the sleeping compartment, and he chained her up. He told her that his name was Whips and Chains. This is his nickname, and that he'd been doing this for years. So he whipped her in the chest, the back, again, pierced her genitals, forced her to walk through the desert on a collar and lead. And she says he was just getting off on the torture part the entire time. So she actually was one of the victims. She suffered from probably some undiagnosed psychotic disorders. She had talked about, what was it? I don't remember. There was some unrealistic beliefs that she was talking about, and so the prosecutors are like, okay, clearly, she was a victim of this. She's not making this up. Is she problematic maybe to put on a witness stand? Can they pick her apart pretty well because she has this crazy talk also going on?
Right.
Yeah, okay, that's realistic. So they end up offering him a plea deal of 6 years. And again, this is for aggravated assault, unlawful imprisonment.
Right, the other stuff
not
is not
murder yet,
right.
Something like that. So he ends up taking that.
Because what hasn't happened yet is they haven't discovered the body,
Right.
any of the bodies.
Right.
Although one with bloody towels
Bloody towels.
in
I
a
know.
bathtub.
I know.
Jeez.
And all these photographs of all these women.
Yeah.
So going back to an FBI agent actually does get called in to kind of look at this. And he starts noting some of the signature stuff, like the cutting of the hair, the piercing of the genitals. And then the victim that flagged down, the first victim I talked about, Tuttle, that flagged down the passerby, she ends up admitting, yeah, the guy they showed me on the side of the road was him. I was just too scared to say anything.
Oh, I didn't
So they
catch
could have
that.
identified him then.
So she was too scared.
She was too scared. Yeah, absolutely. She admitted that later, like at the hospital. But and they had gotten his name. So at some point, there's some balls dropped here. But so in September 1990, this farmer has this old abandoned barn on his property in Illinois, and he's about to burn it down.
Well, he's giving it to the local fire department.
Oh, to
and
train.
they're going to use it as a training.
Gotcha. That's right. So he's kind of doing one last walkthrough and goes up to the loft and sees human remains up there. So he calls the police. His barn was right near Interstate 70, so really close to the main interstate there. So they're able to determine from these remains that this is Regina Walters, the one that had hitchhiked with her boyfriend. And they identify her through dental records because she had, this is almost a year later. She's pretty decomposed. There's just pretty much bones left. But they find bale wire from hay from the loft that was used to strangle her. They said that there were 14 twists, one for each year of her life,
Wow.
essentially, around her neck.
And there are photos. They found photos of her that he had done this whole photo shoot,
Yeah.
asking her to look scared. And then one of the theories was like several of the photos are set up staged. And
What do you mean,
like
staged?
staged where she is
like
standing kind of
shocked?
shocked, putting her hand over her mouth, and then a couple of other photos are like he may have been starting to talk to her to say, no, I'm actually going to do these things to you, because she
Yeah.
actually starts to look really frightened.
Yeah. So they found the photos sorted into several groups. So the first picture of her were just nudes. She was chained inside his truck cab. Her hair had been cut already. She was handcuffed. There was a choke chain around her neck. He had also shaved her pubic hair. And then you could tell that her clitoris was also pierced. And also attached to a chain. And then there's a second group of photos that's taken outdoors. Variety of poses, both dressed and undressed. Now her fingernails and toenails are painted bright red, and she has bright red lipstick on. And then the final set of pictures are the ones taken in the barn. So she's in a black dress. I think they found the black dress back at his apartment. It's the same one. But yeah, those are the series of photographs of what you're talking about, where it does look a little staged, like he's telling her these positions to be in, but then there are some that are just frozen terror in her face. Because we know that's where she was killed.
So doesn't it seem like, you went in deeper than I did on this one. Doesn't it seem like he's starting to get sloppy? He leaves. That's one of the recurring themes that I know you're going to touch on is how many of these guys, as opposed to the larger group of serial killers or spree killers or mass killers, they are, like we said earlier, they're proud of their work, but they want to tell on themselves to an extent.
Well, the whole, I was thinking about also the calling of the parents and toying with them. But it's a risk, too. I think it was definitely more of just part of the power and control. But it's also a risk of, are they going to trace this phone number? Or is there a camera here that's going to see who I am? It
Right.
is. I don't know if it's sloppiness or just risk-taking behavior
Oh,
to
good
get
point.
more of a thrill.
No, that's a very good point. And also, so building on that, the idea...
But I think they go hand in hand. You get more risky, it's going to be more sloppy.
Right. And then also, okay, so if these are not necessarily killers that have engaged in necessarily a complex strategy the way somebody outside a more difficult and challenging pool of victims. Like this is basically being at the carnival and picking up the goldfish in the little stream, right? So they're not necessarily having to develop a level of skills that people outside this paradigm would.
True.
But now I'm wondering, so is this particular pathological makeup drawn to these careers that then allow them access to this pool of victims? Or, and I'm probably talking out of my rear, are they primed for whatever reason, organically or TBI, some kind of frontal lobe injury? They get into this environment and then the environment stirs it up in them.
I don't know, but to build on that, I feel like, again, sexual sadist and maybe the more deliberate, organized psychopath that you're talking about that builds relationships to get access to these victims, I think they're two different things. So I think the sexual sadist, it's a means to an end.
Okay.
Right?
No,
this is
that's,
what I need.
You're absolutely right, yeah.
If I need, if going to swingers clubs and being involved in, consensual like S&M groups is not enough, then I need a real victim and I need real pain and real torture and have that be legit to meet my deviant sexual need. What's the quickest way that I can do that?
Yeah.
So they do fall into a little bit more of a disorganized type, even though it's sort of perfect setting for it. Yeah, it's still a lot of variables to account for.
And I don't want to get too far afield, but every time you say swingers, I think about
Vince Vaughn.
That's a great movie. No, I think about the restaurant deli on Beverly around the corner from my apartment, and now I want ham steak.
Is that what it's called?
It's
or
called
do
swingers.
hang out
No,
there?
it's just called swingers. It's like a total hipster.
Now you want a ham steak.
Although we complained about how, hey, they're shaving this pretty thin. Anyway.
Serial killer truckers and ham steak.
Exactly.
Okay, so this ends up through sort of the signature things that we talked about, like the haircutting and the genitals being pierced, and then obviously them finding Regina's photographs. This all gets linked back to him.
Right.
He finally folds after holding out for quite a long time and pleads guilty to killing Regina. So he was convicted in Arizona for the 6-year sentence of kidnapping and imprisoning that one girl that lived. Then he gets convicted in Illinois of Regina's murder and gets sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. So they actually extradite him to Illinois to where he serves his sentence. In 2003, DNA links him to the murder of Candace Walsh, who that same year, 1990, when he's doing all this killing, which he was about 44 years old at the time, go ahead.
Is that when they also were able to convict him of the killing of Doug Zakowski? Was that the boyfriend of
Candace?
Was that him?
Yes.
Okay. So they
yes,
finally
but they connect him to those of Candace's. So obviously his thing is when he picks up couples, he would kill the boyfriend right away, dump him, and then keep the woman for a while. So Candace Walsh and Doug Zakowski were a couple that were traveling from Georgia to Seattle when he picked them up. Eventually, when they link him through DNA, he gets extradited to Utah in 2005 to be tried for those murders, but then the families actually end up requesting the charges to be dropped because he's already serving a life sentence without parole. They don't want to go through all of that. So he just gets sent back to Illinois. So he actually doesn't technically get convicted for Doug and Candace's murders.
That's very interesting. I mean, they respected the family's wishes.
Yeah. So he's currently 73 years old. He has killed possibly up to 50 women. Again, that hasn't been linked through DNA or anything definitive.
But somebody that's like you were saying, this organized, it's likely he has more victims.
Yeah. And can we just talk about his photographs?
It's not Well, the one
The old man ones.
his prison photographs. You look at that, and I mean,
What happened to his eye? Is he Popeye?
I don't know. I mean, it's not a good picture, but
It's not. So yeah, I just as kind of a couple of notes, like psychological notes. I already talked about sort of sexual sadism. That sexual sadism is a paraphilia. If you listen to our paraphilia episode in season 1, we go through those. But he would absolutely fit into this category to the nth degree. And it would definitely some psychopathy traits there. I don't know how high he would score. Probably pretty darn high, but
I would think you should talk about the hair.
yeah.
Yeah, I think he'd pretty high. His, one of the hallmarks in the. Have we talked about that? Have we talked about I think we've talked about the hair psychopathy.
Oh yeah, we did a
checklist.
whole
Okay.
episode on
So,
psychopathy.
If you read the Wikipedia page or any of the articles online are very good about it, including the controversy, which I think is good to know about, is they talk about sort of that hallmark of antisocial behavior, that glibness and superficial charm. And if any of you are out there interested in looking, you can Google Rhodes and see several interviews on YouTube and different locations. And he is the epitome. When he's caught being interviewed by the police, he is so glib and nonchalant and has an excuse for everything. Mm-hmm. And even when they go, we've got everything, we got the evidence, he's just like, oh, well, you got me. And then starts talking, starts giving up this information. I mean, that is like...
It's very BTK, like just...
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you how I bake a cake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, I'm going to tell you how I killed my victims.
Right.
And then I just made a note that his level of torture, I feel like, escalated from causing physical pain to incorporating the psychological pain. Even just the shaving of the hair is so demeaning.
Right.
There's also been this
the piercing of the genitals.
Yeah. The torture and the control in and of itself, but then there's this altering of who they are. Mm-hmm. And there's even been some speculation of like, well, was he trying to make them appear younger because of shaving the pubic area too? And what's that about? I don't know. I mean, they're young. I mean, Regina was 14.
Yeah, they're already young.
Already.
But it's, I'm not sure that there was necessarily that part of his sexual deviance necessarily. She was certainly sexually developed.
Yeah, she's post-pubescent.
But the idea of, it's almost, I just keep thinking paper doll. He's like changing and playing with appearances and seeing what he can do because they're not real anymore. They're just objects, and he gets to cause pain and then cause pain to their families.
I know.
What was it? Did you look at the pictures of the journal? Like he wrote in her journal, he wrote the boyfriend's name with a big bloody knife through it.
Right.
I mean, and then kept it. One of these sort of trophy things.
Yeah. Well, they had, I believe they found her little notebook with her parents' phone, like her contact book. What did we used to call it? A phone book.
A black book.
A black book.
A black book.
Before we had a contacts app on our phone.
So did you see the top 3 serial killer breakdown for jobs?
No, what are they?
So it's the top 3 skilled serial killer occupations. Skilled is aircraft machinist, assembler, shoemaker or repair person, or an automobile upholsterer.
Oh.
Huh.
Okay. So we have like foot fetish, maybe the shoemaker.
Well, certainly repair people are going to get access to people's homes, so that makes sense. I don't know where automobile upholsterer comes from, except I will say a lot of automobile upholstery programs are taught in prisons.
Interesting.
Yeah, across the country, that's still a big
Or they
thing.
know how to rip out bloody upholstery and then redo it.
That is a
Where does that come from?
all
Is
the
that like
research.
BuzzFeed?
Criminal patterns. It was it's a BuzzFeed list.
BuzzFeed list.
The top 3 semi-skilled serial killer occupations are forestry worker, arborist, truck driver, semi-skilled, or warehouse manager.
I don't know. Arborist takes a lot of skill, in my opinion.
Seriously. Well, that's semi-skilled. We're not saying unskilled.
No, semi-skill, I think, is a under rating of
but
that.
then the top 3 professional or government level serial killers are police or security official, military personnel, or a religious official.
A
I had no
religious
idea
official.
that they even were gathering data on this, but it's very
Well,
interesting.
But come on.
Yeah.
Well, those are people that are allowed to take people's lives.
Yeah.
Except religious official?
Well, look what they're doing to kids. Very, very very vulnerable populations. It's very sad.
So do we want to talk about Jesperson?
Yeah, we should move on. We have taken a lot of time, and thank you for doing all that. That's fascinating. I will say, we're going to focus the last part of this segment on something that really mesmerized Shiloh and I for a number of reasons. But that's not to say that there's not some other unbelievably fascinating examples of trucker serial killers that are all over the web, even so far as to say BuzzFeed lists. But
right, and I hope with the leaps and bounds in DNA that there's a lot of scared serial killing truckers out there.
Yeah,
just drive your truck into a wall. Just drive it off a cliff now. It's fine.
Well, it was interesting reading and watching the some of the clips where they're interviewing truckers and they're interviewing female truckers, and look. It's one of those things where if you don't think about the infrastructure that supports your day-to-day life.
Sure.
And truckers, like they were giving stats on if the trucking system broke down tomorrow, big cities would starve within. I mean, cities would fall apart because they supply all the food, all the supplies. And it's something that we don't think about how important it is because it's looked on as like sort of an semi-skilled blue-collar job when there's a lot of really great people out there. And now with the ability to reach out to each other through the internet, several truckers have started their own support group and protective. Like they try and get women out of prostitution and into rehabilitation programs.
Right.
I mean, there's some real great effort being done out there.
Yeah, well, they're the people to do it. They're right there on the ground with them. So,
right.
So in
Jesperson.
Yeah, and talking about Keith Jesperson, we're not going to do a full recap of his crimes like we just did with Rhodes. Because if you want that, you can go to the podcast we're going to talk about, which is the Happy Face Killer podcast, which anyone listening to this, I'm sure, has picked up on that. But just a little blurb. He's a Canadian-American serial killer who murdered 8 women in the U.S. between January 1990. Wow, something about 1990. And March 1995. So he had a 5-year span of doing this. But the podcast, the premise of it is his adult daughter, Melissa Moore, is essentially exploring not only his crimes, but, the psyche of a child that has grown up having to know this about her father and how she's still struggling with that today. So... I'm sorry. And he's called the Happy Face Killer because he sent letters to the media and prosecutors and would draw a smiley face on there. So that's where that comes from. Where do you want to start in just kind of talking about the podcast?
Well, first I would want to say that probably if you're listening to us, you have listened to Happy Face Killer. If you haven't, I do highly recommend it. It's a 10-episode arc. The episodes are about 42 to 48 minutes.
It's an easy binge. If you commute in LA, it's an easy binge.
Exactly. we have an excuse for it. There's a lot of things that I think are important. I think there's actually some really important things that are explored in it. Besides the fact that we're talking about something that's just brutal. I mean, this guy he is an absolute narcopath, a narcissistic sociopath. There's some great things that are explored in it. I'm a mouthy guy. I have a little bit of a filter. I'm going to try and stay very filtered about this because there are some things that I thought were really done poorly. And I say that out of protection for anyone that has been traumatized. Is basically what I mean. So we're talking about an adult woman who's recounting, and this is the thing that to me is fascinating, is that we get a young woman who recounts different aspects, perspectives, and chapters of her life. What was my life like as a child? having this father, and she's able to really articulate the thing that most children do is we idolize our parents. And Jesperson has some remarkable physical characteristics. He is a giant. The guy is like pushing 7 feet tall.
Right.
He was 300 pounds at the time. Any pictures you see of him, he dwarfs.
Towers over everyone.
He towers over everyone.
And what a symbol of a protective father figure.
Oh yeah.
You know, just the massive size of him. How could you not feel safe around him?
Right, she has wonderful memories, and one of the things that I think is difficult for her, and she expresses and gives you visuals for, is that's the struggle, is trying to rectify this dialectic, these two dichotomous experiences of this person was engaging in horrific acts and then cuddling with me on the couch and watching Unsolved Mysteries. You know, and that to me was like one of the fascinating things about the show.
Absolutely.
And then, was it age 15 when all of it blew up?
Yeah, 14 or 15.
Okay.
Was when he was arrested.
So, you know, he was a prolific killer, and when he was caught, he was caught. And this is someone, I'm going to refer back to what we were talking about earlier, is Jesperson didn't want anybody taking credit for his kills.
Right.
In fact, the police were so hell-bent on closing one of the cases that they took the testimony of a developmentally disabled woman who implicated her boyfriend at the time.
And herself.
Actually. Not really kind of, because she had an impaired ability to understand consequences. And Jesperson's view is like, no, I don't want innocent people serving time for what I did. When the underlying motivation is, no, you didn't want anybody taking credit for your kills.
Yeah, I just did a hard eye roll for that one.
Yeah. I could hear it. You could probably hear it through the lens. What is disturbing to listen to is that her father didn't commit one crime and done. He committed a series of horrific crimes, and yet, like we know from an object relation standpoint, that there is a biological imperative and a psychological drive to cling to what you have internalized as your understanding of your protector, even though that person has done horrible things. And that's really what this podcast is about, is her struggling with that.
Sure.
And also worrying, am I, when you see I've been close to this person all my life, am I this person?
Right.
I mean, that's sort of that's the basis of object relations, is that we internalize these images of our parents. We then have relationships with the internalized object of what we think our parent is. Well, now this poor woman has had that yanked out from underneath her. It pulls at her identity. Oh my God, am I a murderer as well?
Right.
Now, that being said, is it time to take the other?
Yeah.
Can I go the other direction?
No, please go the other direction.
Okay.
We can do this. We can tread lightly.
We'll go back and forth. But here's the problem I have with it as a clinician, is this young woman, and she's a woman now, but as a young woman, she was horrifically traumatized. She, for some reason, at some point in her life, decides that she wants to try and get answers, so she pursues and continues a relationship with her father. And by relationship, I mean she communicates with him. And he is incredibly manipulative. He sends her contradictory messages over a decade.
Right.
And even at one point, he tells her, "You are just like me," which, of course, traumatizes her even further. And then there's another point where she begins her healing process. Her journey of healing is a particular road that I don't think was well thought out. And it was, my opinion is that it's not really good for her in the long run. It's also an absolute end for her father, for Jesperson to come back and really excoriate her. Who do you think you are? You're nothing. You're nobody.
Someone's stealing his spotlight again.
Someone is stealing his spotlight. And what really concerns me is that, and there's parts of this individual's life that we have no insight into. I don't know if she received counseling. I don't know if she received a trauma protocol at any point in
Right.
her life. But I'll tell you this, it doesn't sound like anybody gave her advice on how to do this, because
With professional support. and
with
help.
professional support.
Right, meaning therapeutic.
And frankly, I'm flabbergasted at the producer of this podcast. And who knows, maybe I'm painting myself into a corner and I won't be able to do business with these people. I hope it's not that. But, either you're a producer or you're a best pal or you're a counselor. And let me
Right.
tell you, you're not a counselor. So stay in, I'm going to use a current term, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Because there's commentary that steps outside the boundaries of journalistic integrity, I feel. And, look, when I'm working with someone who's traumatized, in the same way if I'm working with someone who is maybe experiencing psychosis or a psychotic episode, the rule is we don't escalate it, right?
Right.
I'm not going to tell somebody, hey, calm down, or hey, that's not real. I'm not going to deny them their experience. I'm going to help guide them through a healthy expression of that, but I'm not going to encourage that. And I felt like that was what was done here. So that's my rant.
Okay.
And I'm sure I'll have more commentary. But I was really concerned for her, and you can't listen to this. And sometimes it even gets to the point where you kind of lose a little sympathy for her.
I felt that
think.
too. I felt a lot of ups and downs. It starts off, I liked the twist of it, that this was going to be told from her perspective. And I thought, she wrote her book 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I expected maybe for her to have worked through some of this stuff over the last 10 years. If that was kind of the start of her healing process, hopefully it was much sooner than that. But if she chooses to start this chapter of a healing process in, I'm going to confront this head on, write a book about it, go on Dr. Phil, go on Oprah, kind of expose myself to the world with my experience. To me, it felt just as raw as it would have been 10 years ago. And I didn't know what to make of that. Either she hasn't worked through it or it's contrived.
That's the question,
for
right?
the podcast,
Right.
which was, obviously done fairly recently.
And as a listener, I don't think you want to be put in that position.
No, it was confusing. It was confusing. And then, I don't know. I think I'm just left sort of confused by her motivations and what she is doing to be re-traumatized.
Trauma can reprogram the brain.
Right.
One of the high intensity experiences can reprogram the brain. So I don't know what's going on. I do express a lot of concern for this emotional re-traumatization and reliving it. And like you said, what was done? Has anything been done? Because it seems pretty fresh.
It does.
So it's either
it
fresh
does.
or it's contrived.
Right.
I'm not judging the contrived but I will say this on the other side of it. I mean, she talks about, she's been excoriated online because there are a lot of trolls online.
Sure.
But I'm not sure that the approach that you're taking for your journey is helping it.
Right.
So,
Right.
like at some point, working with a counselor to work through it. Like, well, what is my stance going to be? I'm going to own my wound. This is this is part of my identity. I'm going to work through it. But and fuck the people that criticize me.
Yeah.
That being said, what you sent me today blew that out of the water. So you want to tell me what you sent?
Okay. I just want to make sure I have the right. So is this the True Crime Daily thing that I sent you?
It was the one after that.
The one after that?
The magazine cover.
Oh, okay. So that being said, and hang on, I want to read my exact text to you. I wrote, "Here comes another one." ... So,
by the way, folks, if anybody ever gets access to our
text messages?
literally a 9-year-long
oh God,
text history,
thread.
jeez.
So February 4th issue of People that's going to be coming out is a story raised by a serial killer, and it's the daughter of BTK has written her own book.
Okay.
So when she was 26 when she learned about her dad, so she was a bit older. So yeah, I don't know if this is going to end up being a trend and how long that trend will go. I'm not sure. And I think, going back to Melissa,
I mean, look, it's
I feel like it feels like it comes from a place of protection in a way of,
Yeah.
As a therapist. And when I saw that, they have her as like this special correspondent on this YouTube crime channel called True Crime Daily. I think Chris Hansen started it or something. But one of her dad's victims that survived was recently arrested for stabbing her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
They send Melissa out as a correspondent to go interview her.
Okay, I am sorry. I did not have time to look at that today. I didn't realize that's what that was.
And so she's actually doing this interview and, about the time this victim spent with her father. And it's just, I don't know. There's too much crossover to where it felt gross. It felt, again, from a place, of protection where
Shiloh,
you should not be putting yourself
what
through
is the
this.
benefit?
I don't
like,
know.
What other than if it bleeds, it leads television.
Yeah, and that's what I go back to is
what
these
is the
producers that I'm just like, really? Ugh.
One of the things that happens in the podcast that I think turned out well and is something that there are several organizations in the U.S. and around the world that seek to reach a place of reconciliation and forgiveness between perpetrators of crimes and their victims, or perpetrators of crimes and the family of their victims. And there some absolutely amazing transformations and personal evolutions can come out of these things. So, as an example, she goes to meet with the son of her father's last victim, right? Okay, so last victim who was murdered. And this guy, his life was horrifically impacted by his mother's death. I mean, he expresses himself really well. And whatever he's done on his journey, which seems like a lot of introspection and self-help. Mm-hmm. He's done a great deal of obviously he's a yogi. Yeah. He's a self-study in this stuff. And he ends up taking care of her emotions in many senses. And look, good for you that you evolved to a place where you have that level of, Kuan Yin level of compassion. That's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. That is gorgeous. But there's a part at which, that he's really taking care of her emotionally in several conversations that I had really strong reactions to.
So did
I. Why is this happening?
Right.
Why is this happening? And yeah, it left me disturbed.
Yeah. Overall, I would say it was good, and if you haven't listened to it, listen to it. But it left me feeling a bunch of feelings.
I know. One of the things that he says, they're trying to figure things out. And I do like the idea that you're a fly on the wall of this conversation between these two people trying to make sense of something that is absolutely senseless. I mean, that's fascinating to me. But so much of it is off. Like one of the statements he made about Jesperson, his life is terrible. He is being punished. He has nothing. He has no love. He knows he's all alone. And look, if that's what you need to create in your psyche so that you get some comfort knowing that there is some kind of justice in the world, that's okay. But that's not the objective truth.
Right.
Because the guy has created a comfortable life for himself in prison, relatively comfortable. He's there for the rest of his life. He's adjusted. He's just doing his time. Not to say that there aren't challenges, but the foundation of that argument also is he is a sociopath. He does not care.
Right.
He doesn't care about anything for himself. He's not suffering because he's not capable of that level of suffering that we're making.
For the last 10 years, there's been a book written about him. There's been numerous TV shows,
just
a podcast.
Just feeding it.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that concerned me. What was the other thing? They do a really interesting thing where she is able to get some relief. She's so worried about the idea because Jesperson was revealed to have had a traumatic brain injury as a sports injury when he was in high school. And it was noted that he had had behavioral and impulse control changes after that injury. And there's a supposition that there was an underlying organic psychopathy that was really triggered by the TBI, as well as being put into an environment where he was able to live out these fantasies. So she goes to basically the expert in this area, who has written a lot, to get the brain scan so that she can learn if and because they're looking at what areas of the brain light up.
Right.
And she gets the
Dr.
answer.
James Fallon. I love it.
Yeah.
Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah.
Neuroscientist.
And if you don't know Dr. James Fallon, there's been articles written about him in the New Yorker,
Oh, yeah.
New York Times. He is a research
a TED
neurologist.
Talk.
Yeah. He's a neurologist, and he is a card-carrying sociopath.
Right. Psychopath.
Psychopath.
So he
yeah,
has-
he does. He hits the psychopath scale, doesn't
Yeah.
he? Right.
So he has the brain markers and the DNA marker, the genetic markers for it. He just didn't have
He didn't have
severe childhood trauma.
He didn't have the severe trauma. Oh, that's the other thing about Jesperson is
Right.
that, I'm sorry, and I should have been saying Melissa's name all along. Melissa does know that she not only witnessed interactions and her grandfather tried to molest her as a child as well, is that her father gave examples of really how badly he was beaten.
Sure.
So we've got genetic markers, traumatic brain injury, hostile and severe childhood trauma.
The trifecta.
Yeah,
Psychopath
just
trifecta.
horrible trifecta. And what Dr. Fallon is able to say is like, I had all those markers except for didn't have brain injury,
Right.
and I had a great loving family.
Yep.
So
I'm a bit of a risk taker.
it's so interesting. Like,
It
I
is.
like to get people to do things that were dangerous, and he's
Yeah.
kind of saying it in a jolly manner.
Right.
Like, oh, that's kind of
He's
creepy.
totally a jolly guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, she goes to him. He does the brain scan and says, "Look, your brain is completely normal."
Yeah.
And that seemed to be, huge for her. I think, I don't think that's a bad thing to sort of, challenge her belief system or some of
No, I
those,
mean, like I
thoughts.
could relate. Like, wouldn't any of us love to know? Wouldn't we love to be brave enough and be able to go in and get a medical test that says you're never going to have dementia,
Right.
or you're never going to have heart disease.
Gosh.
But
It is very
the
brave.
other side of it is that you could get the answer like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you've got all the markers. It's going to happen. I hope you're going to be prepared. Because you still have to live your life.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the one more thing? Okay, one more thing.
One more thing.
Since we're
Did
on
you
the
make
roll.
notes? You just memorizing all of this?
I made a couple of notes, but like what I do is like I have a weird memory, so I have bullet points and I have words, and the words make me remember. So what's my bullet point? Photo. Okay, because we both looked at the photo.
Right.
It's online, and I don't want to ruin the podcast for you because I really want people to listen to it because I think it's fascinating. Is at one point, Melissa is married and has a child.
Couple of kids.
Couple of kids, and they go to visit her dad in prison.
The whole family.
I can barely form an opinion about this because once again I go back to who was providing that young woman with support and who was giving her nurturing and containment, and who was there advising her.
Right.
Now, what I don't know from the outside, from the way that story is told, I don't know that somebody didn't say,
Yeah, it's a great idea. Go do it.
or no,
Or no.
don't do it. That's a
Right.
horrible idea. And she's like, no, I have to do this for me.
Sure.
But it is jarring to look at that photo and see this 7-foot, 300-pound man
And his prison blues.
in his prison blues who has brutally murdered 8 women or more,
Oh, sure.
standing around his children.
Yeah, she's got her kid on her hip and
Yeah.
family photo.
So once again, that idea, that concept of like, this is my family. I have to connect. No, you don't have to connect.
Right.
You don't have to. In fact,
Right.
that may be part of the thing that is providing this feeding of re-trauma. That's
Right.
where I get concerned.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. This is a heavy topic.
Yeah.
all the way
I
around.
was really like kind of stunned as I was listening to it. There were a couple of times I was like,
So you
"Whoa."
had sent, right when we talked about this, you had sent me an article that were like, ooh, is this the new serial killer mode, some sort of mode of transport of this era? And it was an article about an Uber driver charged with killing 6 strangers in between giving rides to people. So this happened, actually, he pled guilty in January this year in Michigan. In, I guess, the Kalamazoo area in 2016, he murdered 8 people, 4 women, a man, and a 17-year-old boy. So this guy, Dalton is his last name. Police quoted him as saying that a devil figure was on Uber's app commanding him to kill on the day of the shooting. So this was all in one day. This wasn't like throughout his Uber career.
Wait, he killed all those people the same day?
Yep.
Whoa!
Yep.
I did not see that.
Yeah. So, but he was eventually found competent to stand trial and dropped the insanity defense. So he ended up pleading, and he said he wanted to spare the families more grief during the trial. So I don't think his devil figure on the app defense worked out so well.
It didn't, and
I don't know what's going on there.
Look, I don't know anything else about that, but my gut tells me that there was meth involved. That like.
Let's see, Michigan. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, who knows? I'd also say that I think it's interesting because, what grabs you about that is that it's an Uber driver, but that doesn't necessarily correlate to access to victims or that we know of, because we could, if we had stats on it, we might be able to look at any number of taxi drivers that were killing
totally.
people on their time off.
Yeah.
We don't know.
No, it was kind of a silly comparison. Yeah. Like, ooh, is this a new trucker trend? Is Uber trend? But no, totally different MO and everything. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we are going to bring you a 0.5 episode that's going to be released very soon. February has a lot of exciting things coming out. And yeah, we're going to stick with our timeline, keep cranking out a couple a month. And before you know it, it will be July, and we'll be at the True Crime Podcast Festival.
We want to see everybody.
In
please
Chicago.
Come. Yeah.
Yeah, please come out. So many other great podcasts are now going to be there. Missing Maura Murray is going to be there, which I'm super excited about.
I got to watch that again. That was really good.
Yeah. I've listened to so many episodes of that podcast because they have so many that I need to see these guys in person just because I've listened to their voices for so long.
Okay, I was about to start a whole other conversation.
Nope,
No,
don't do it.
Save
we'll
it.
save it. Otherwise, please give a listen to the Getting Off podcast as well.
Please.
You will, if you enjoy us, you'll enjoy them. Nick and Jessa are great, and hopefully we will be collaborating in some fashion in the future with them. So, anyway, this has been LA
Not so
Confidential.
Bye, folks. We'll see
Bye-bye.
you soon.